Back in September 2023, I purchased the newest iPhone that had just come out, the iPhone 15 Pro Max in 256GB. This is something I'd been doing every single year since the iPhone X's launch in 2017, and yet here we are now, fast approaching 2 years later, and I'm still using the same phone. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91Tech, and I love my iPhone 15 Pro Max. There are a good few reasons I haven't yet upgraded, despite my job, for the most part, involving reviewing smartphones, and we'll discuss some of that later on. But today I want to focus mainly on the iPhone 15 Pro itself, how it holds up and will continue to perform in the future, and of course whether or not it could even be worth buying. Because while Apple may not sell it brand new anymore, it's actually a pretty enticing option on the used market, perhaps even more so than the newest Pro iPhones available. Let's start with the general value proposition of this phone right now, and then we'll get to the actual review portion to see how it holds up in 2025. I will also link my full iPhone buying guide in the description below if you're curious on how other iPhones stack up. Is the iPhone 15 Pro still worth it? Yes, it is, and it's barely even a question for me. Compared to the 16 Pro, you're really not missing out on much. Those phones got a bit bigger, a bit faster, and a bit better in the camera department, but we still have almost all the same features, including even Apple Intelligence, which has been heavily marketed by Apple. Now, there's no visual intelligence, which is similar to Google Lens or something, but otherwise it's basically the complete package, including things like image generation, Genmojis, ChatGPT integration with Siri, and so on. This is the only iPhone outside of the 16 line right now to run Apple Intelligence thanks to its A17 Pro chipset and 8GB of RAM, solid specs that lead to incredibly solid performance so long as your battery remains healthy. I'm really not going to bother talking much at all about Apple Intelligence because, to be frank, I really don't care about any of it no matter how proudly Apple continues to market it. I'd rather have it than not, and I do have it, but I don't really ever use it. Even Genmoji, which I thought I might end up using since you can have a bit of fun with it, honestly I've barely touched it since first getting the update. Now I'm only one person, and if you do want Apple Intelligence, it is here. Otherwise you're looking to at least the iPhone 16e, which is, as of making this video, the newest iPhone on the market. It serves as Apple's supposed budget option at $600 US, so, you know, still pretty pricey, but it does have a lot of the same specs as the iPhone 16, just in the body of an iPhone 14, with only a single 48 megapixel camera lens on the back. It's a really great phone, and a pretty good value, but when you look to somewhere like eBay.com, you may be surprised to see that the iPhone 15 Pro is often around $600 itself, and sometimes even cheaper. Now, to be clear, you're obviously looking at pre-owned or refurbished devices here that will vary wildly in condition, but when you compare the 15 Pro to the 16e, it kind of feels like a minor compromise when you consider everything else you get on Apple's 2023 flagship. Triple cameras, the 120Hz ProMotion display, the dynamic island, a far more premium titanium build, even MagSafe. Both phones even start with 128GB. This phone is very similar to the 16 Pro, but at about the price of the 16e. There are some downsides, of course, to going this route. Obviously, buying used is not always fun, and you need to be careful to purchase a phone in good condition, ideally with a healthy battery, from a reliable seller. Mind you, some retailers still may have some brand new iPhone 15 Pros in stock, but you will likely be paying a premium for those, and the used market probably is going to be better value. You can also look at Apple's certified refurbished section, where the 15 Pro, as of making this video, is available, and starting at $759, honestly, that's not too bad an option, especially since any Apple refurbished product is going to feel practically brand new. Of course, you would be paying a bit more than you would for the 16e, although you are getting a better phone, but either way, the used market is still going to provide the best possible value. The 16e is mostly worse than the 15 Pro in almost every way, but not completely. Performance is going to be similar, though gaming should be better on the 15 Pro, and specifically battery life is going to be mostly better on the 16e, thanks to some serious optimization magic, as well as Apple's new in-house C1 modem. Apple's comparison tool rates it for 26 hours of video playback versus 23 on the 15 Pro, which is fairly significant, though the 15 Pro Max gets you 29 hours, and I can say from experience my own 15 Pro Max is still pretty incredible for battery life. The only way I can kill the thing in a day, given I charge it every night, is if I use it a lot, and it has to be something intensive like FaceTime for hours on end without a charge. That will kill it, but otherwise I never have to worry about the battery at all, which is a really nice comfort to have. My battery health has held up about as you would expect for, at this point, roughly 20 months of usage. It's still got 91% of its maximum capacity, very good number there, and I'm still under 400 cycles. These batteries under ideal conditions are supposed to take about 1,000 cycles before before they hit the 80% mark, which is typically when you'll need to get the battery replaced, there'll be a pop-up on your device telling you when it needs to be serviced. You can also do things like set a charge limit in order to hopefully help the longevity of your battery. Thankfully, because we're only in 2025 and this phone really isn't too old yet, most of the options on the used market probably shouldn't be too much lower than around 90% or the mid to high 80s, as even with heavy usage you can only kill these things so quickly. But it's still something to watch out for, and some people might just get unlucky with how fast their battery degrades. All in all though, I firmly believe the iPhone 15 Pro is very much worth buying used in 2025, and will continue to be worth it for probably at least another year or two, especially as the prices only further drop. This phone has held up fantastically well, and don't forget, only a year ago it would run you at least $1,000 brand new from Apple, so you would expect it to hold up, and it very much does. Having USB-C makes it feel much more modern to me than any of the older Pro models, including even the 14 Pro, and while $600 is still a hefty chunk of change, I think for this phone it's more than worth it. Apple has long been the king of smartphone longevity, and with a phone like this, we can hopefully expect regular major software updates through to at least 2030, plus probably a good few more years of security updates. Performance will continue to be strong as the hardware here is still very powerful, and everything else about the phone, from the display to the cameras, still feels like a modern flagship in every way it counts. Smartphones have gotten so good these days that there's just not nearly as much improvement year to year as there used to be. And while this can be frustrating for someone like myself who typically does upgrade their phone every year, it's also a huge plus for nearly everyone else, and it makes purchasing a used device like this really ideal. If you want to buy an iPhone brand new and you want the features that this phone here has, you're spending at least $1,000. If you want ProMotion, you need the 16 Pro. If you want the triple cameras, you need the 16 Pro. Or you could just get this phone for significantly less. So if you want to save some cash and you're comfortable buying pre-owned, I think the 15 Pro is kind of a no-brainer. So yeah, again, the 15 Pro, it's worth it, and it might even be one of the best value iPhones you can purchase in 2025. But let's back up a bit here and take a closer look at the hardware itself to see what exactly makes this phone so great, and then we'll get into my experience with it as a long-term user. With a Pro iPhone comes a Pro design. Built with this gorgeous frosted glass back and a frame made from titanium and aluminum, this phone feels just as premium and luxurious as it always has. It's not as shiny as the stainless steel of the 14 Pro, it's more subtle, and while the move to titanium always felt a little unnecessary to me, I do appreciate that Apple did something to shake things up a bit. Plus, the phone is significantly thinner and lighter than the 14 Pro, which felt like a genuine upgrade given how iPhones have generally been getting thicker almost every year over the past decade. The phone feels great in the hands, though you'll definitely want to be using a case to protect it. This phone actually might be a little less durable than the 14 Pro. I remember it not performing so well in drop tests when it came out, though I mean I haven't destroyed mine quite yet. I originally bought one of Apple's silicone cases since they unfortunately stopped making the leather ones, which I always used to get, and it lasted me about a year before I needed to get another one. I think most people will get more life out of these cases than I do, since I tend to pull the phone out of the case very frequently for the sake of getting some B-roll or just because I'm fidgeting. Overall, I would recommend the silicone case if you like it. It's helped my phone survive a good few drops, including when it went flying out of my pocket as I was driving a side-by-side in Arizona a little while back. Screen protector was pretty wrecked, which is another accessory you'll want, but the phone itself is pretty much fine, minus a few chips and scrapes. I'll put an Amazon affiliate link to Apple's silicone case plus a screen protector in the description if you're interested. Just whatever you do, avoid those fine woven cases like the plague. They're infamously terrible, to the point Apple stopped selling them after only a year. Anyways, the iPhone 15 Pro design. We've got two size options, of course, and just for scale, I've got my old 14 Pro versus my 15 Pro Max here. The smaller 15 Pro is 6.1 inches and the 15 Pro Max is 6.7 inches. Both displays are high resolution, gorgeous, and vivid ProMotion OLED panels that still look as amazing as ever. ProMotion means a 120 Hz refresh rate, which was introduced with the 13 Pro. It basically equates to a more buttery smooth experience, 120 frames per second, and while it's nice enough just for swiping around the user interface, it's also going to be especially great if you're into mobile gaming. Past that, it's mostly just nice to have, and it's hard to go back to a 60 Hz panel once you're used to it. And it's one of those features that, as of right now, you can only get on a Pro iPhone. Now, I will say, ever since iOS 18 came out, I've had this weird lag every time I swipe from my first page to the second on my home screen. Reboots don't fix it, and I've got no idea why it's happening. Maybe a restore would fix it, I don't know. Literally unusable. Okay, well, maybe not really, but it is mildly annoying. We've got an always-on display, which was first on the 14 Pro. This is yet another feature not on the non-Pro iPhones, which feels very silly, but it's nice to have it here regardless. This phone is eSIM only if you're in the US. I'm in Canada, so I have a physical SIM tray myself. itself. Aside from the size, there's only a couple differences between the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. Number 1, the battery is larger in the Max, and it gets a good bit more life, which is nice. And 2, you have a 5x telephoto zoom lens on the Max versus a 3x zoom on the smaller 15 Pro, just like what the 14 Pro had. It's a maybe weirdly specific difference, but the 16 Pro has the 5x zoom on both models, so something to keep note of if you do want the 5x. The 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max did get a little larger from the 15 Pro, but not by a whole lot. It is substantial, but honestly, I don't know if I'd want anything larger than my 15 Pro Max. Historically, I usually went with the smaller Pros. This was a bit of a step up for me, and I am really glad I went for it, as I enjoy the extra screen real estate. The 6.7 inches is plenty large enough, and my hands aren't exactly the biggest, so this kind of feels like the sweet spot for me personally. Just another reason I didn't bother upgrading this time around. We have the dynamic island, of course, which is as dynamic as ever. It's another feature that's not strictly necessary to have, but having media controls up there, as well as some other neat functionality, always proves to be useful for me. Call it another reason to maybe look at a 15 Pro rather than the iPhone 16e, which of course still has the iPhone 14 notch. We also just have a ton of those modern amenities on this phone. MagSafe, USB-C. We've got the action button, which, to be honest, is probably one of the least useful features Apple has ever added. At least for me, since I still use it as a mute switch. Yeah, very creative of me, I know, but you can map it to basically anything you want, so I guess I'd rather have it than not have it. As a whole, this is a really beautiful smartphone, and it looks extremely similar to the 16 Pro. I love my natural titanium color here. It's nothing too bold like my old purple 14 Pro, but I'm still not tired of it. And of course, there are some other color options as well, with a black, white, and blue, which makes for some nice variety. That camera bump is as big as ever, and they're only continuing to get bigger with every year. So why don't we go ahead and talk about the photography of the 15 Pro, which, as always, is one of its biggest selling points. Here we have the now iconic triple lens setup so familiar on these Pro iPhones. Specifically, the 48 megapixel main wide lens providing 1x and 2x zoom options. The 2x zoom crops the sensor to 12 megapixels. We've also got a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens giving 0.5x zoom. And finally, the 12 megapixel telephoto lens, which gives 3x zoom on the smaller 15 Pro and then 5x zoom on the 15 Pro Max. The 5x zoom is admittedly part of the reason I got the Max, even though I didn't think it would be a huge deal, and it really probably isn't, but I do like having the option for such a dramatic zoom range, as you can even go up to 25x with digital zoom. The versatility here is what really sells that Pro camera setup, with so many easy to use zoom options, all providing terrific quality photos, and I've captured a good few pictures at this point over my near 2 years with the phone. I don't have a ton to say here, other than the 15 Pro provides really fantastic photography, as you would expect from a 2023 $1,000 plus flagship smartphone. While the 16 Pro did bring minor improvements, like a 48 megapixel ultra-wide rather than only 12 megapixels, these cameras are honestly so good as it is, I don't think it really matters. The main wide lens is definitely the highest quality and it's my typical go-to, but whatever I do end up using, it can almost always be reliably counted upon to produce a solid image, regardless of context. Outdoors in daylight, the phone takes a great picture, and even indoors or in any poor lighting condition, the phone still produces great shots. Smartphone cameras are so good these days, it's ridiculous, and again, this is just another reason I didn't feel too bothered to go to the 16 Pro. I just didn't need it. The 15 Pro is plenty capable enough. You have an array of RAW and ProRes options as well that I personally don't typically feel the need to use, since I'm really no photography expert and am generally more than satisfied without it, but if you're into tailoring images to your own liking, it's really nice to have the option. These cameras may not be perfect, but no smartphone camera is perfect. The important thing is that it's able to capture moments and memories, and do so in consistently high quality. The versatility here and crazy range in zoom options is just so nice to have. This camera system is robust, and that's really the appeal of getting a Pro iPhone to begin with. The selfie camera is 12 megapixels, and it's pretty good, as you would expect. Definitely nothing out of the norm, but pretty great. Video is also going to be amazing, as you would expect. Overall, the iPhone 15 Pro still has one of the best smartphone camera setups ever made, even if it's almost 2 years old. And that's the thing, the 15 Pro as a whole is still absolutely one of the best smartphones ever made, period. Even as we hit that 2-year mark. Of course it is. Only a year ago, it was Apple's best flagship after all, and that means every aspect of this phone, whether it be the cameras, design, display, the hardware, it's still going to impress its users, regardless if they've been using the phone since launch like myself, or are just picking one up right now. Powered by Apple's A17 Pro chipset and 8GB of RAM, the 15 Pro is still an absolute powerhouse. The smaller 15 Pro starts with 128 gigs. That option is not on the 15 Pro Max, which starts with 256 gigs, and then there's also options for 512GB as well as 1TB. Might seem weird, the smaller one starts with less storage, but Apple likes to cheap out here so they can still price the smaller Pro at $999, and then the Max starts at $1199. They did the same thing with the 16 Pro as well, so that's why. 128 gigs may be enough for you, but I would recommend getting 256 if you can swing it. You'll feel less limited, especially if you take any ProRes video, which is capped at only 1080p at the lowest sized option. That said, thanks to USB-C, you can connect a compatible external storage device to record ProRes in up to 4K 60, a niche use case to be sure, but it's really nice to have that option. Man, I love USB-C. Overall, for most people, I would recommend at least 256 gigs, especially if you plan on using your 15 Pro for a number of years. It's just a good idea. And this phone really will last you a number of years. As I said, you can probably safely expect updates through to at least 2030 or so, given Apple's typical update patterns. Right now, the phone runs great, and so long as you have a healthy battery, I wouldn't expect any different. So at this point, we've really covered the brunt of the 15 Pro's hardware. And yeah, it just makes for the complete package. In 2025, the 15 Pro is easily still worth buying, and it probably will be for a number of years. Heck, right now, I think this is probably one of the best value iPhones available, all things considered. Again, iPhone 16e, brand new at $600 US, or a good condition 15 Pro pre-owned at around the same price. Yeah, I'm taking that 15 Pro every single time. All that's really left to talk about is my personal experience with the phone, and why exactly I didn't upgrade to the 16 Pro, and if I plan on upgrading this year. So there's two sides to why I stuck with the 15 Pro, the practical consumer side, and then the other side, which involves my rather unusual perspective as someone who makes a living reviewing smartphones on YouTube. So let's start with the practical. First, no one needs to upgrade their phones every year. That goes without saying, and it's been nice in a certain sense to have used this phone for so long now, because the vast majority of users will in fact use whatever phone they buy for at least a couple years, if not longer. Now, I'm very used to upgrading yearly, so it's easy for me to take solid performance for granted and just assume that older phones are holding up well, but using the 15 Pro myself for almost 2 years now, I'm able to say from personal experience, the phone feels almost just as great as it ever has. It's definitely not quite as good as when I first bought it. There are the odd little bits of lag or app crashes, but they're extremely few and far between, and probably more due to software bugs rather than anything related to the phone's hardware. That little bit of lag swiping between the home pages is honestly my only major complaint. Battery life isn't as good as it used to be, but even sometimes spending hours playing YouTube or Netflix just in the background as I go about my day or whatever, I really can't kill this thing. That's where having the Max really helps a lot, and I do love the larger size. I might have gotten the 16 Pro Max had I opted for the smaller 15 Pro in 2023, but thankfully I didn't. At this point in my life, the most important thing for me is having a phone be reliable for the things I do need it for. If I'm driving an hour or two out of town, I want my battery to be at a level comfortable enough to use Google Maps both ways. And even if I've been using the 15 Pro throughout the day, it's generally good enough to do that. Yeah, I can plug my phone into my car if I want to, but the important thing to me is that I very rarely need to. The only things that's consistently drained my battery quickly is if I'm doing a lot of FaceTiming. I believe there's been one time since I got this phone that it's actually died on me unexpectedly, and it was in the middle of like a 5-hour FaceTime call, so it's kind of excusable. So the battery is generally fantastic, performance is always solid, I've got the bells and whistles I want like USB-C, the big display, dynamic island, ProMotion, plus photography is stellar whenever I need to snap a quick picture of my dog. Pretty hard to complain. And when you look at what the 16 Pro brings over the 15 Pro, especially the 16 Pro Max compared to the 15 Pro Max, since I already have a great battery and the 5x zoom lens, the reality is there just isn't a whole lot the vast majority of people would need. A bit larger display, a bit faster performance, a bit better cameras. As a whole, the phone is in fact a bit better, and if you want the best of what Apple has to offer, it definitely qualifies, though at this point in the year, I'd strongly recommend waiting until the iPhone 17 line drops this fall, especially since it's rumored to be a much more substantial upgrade. I'll link my own video on the rumors for these phones in the description below. But all in all, while the iPhone 16 Pro might be the best, my 15 Pro Max for me, right here and now, is still more than good enough, and I could easily use it another year if I had to. From a practical standpoint, I just don't need to upgrade. And if you're looking at saving hundreds of dollars by buying one of these used or refurbished, rather than buying something brand new from Apple, I think it's the way to go. It's a really tempting option in the very least. Then there's the other side to this that we'll only briefly touch on here since it's not a very common scenario, as I'm a YouTuber whose job involves making videos on phones. Really the number one reason I didn't get the 16 Pro, and I've talked a little bit about this before, frankly it comes down to burnout. I've been purchasing the newest iPhone every single year since the 2017 iPhone 10. Back then I saw it as an investment into my YouTube channel as I was starting to take it more seriously, and with each passing year I would continually purchase the best iPhones available. The only notable exception being when I purchased the iPhone 12 instead of the 12 Pro because the phones were very similar. Now obviously buying the newest iPhone every year, it's pretty expensive, and yeah, my reviews of those phones generally wouldn't make that money back, but it is a tax write-off, plus I'm able to use that new iPhone as a point of comparison when reviewing older devices. But I've been doing this a long time now, and I'm just not that excited or interested in the latest and greatest tech from Apple anymore. I did a 2-hour video last year called When Did iPhone Peak?, really delving into why, so I'll link it in the description if you're curious, but there's just not a whole lot changing year to year, at least compared to how things used to be. Smartphones are just too good these days. So this time around, I just decided not to bother, and truthfully, it was sort of freeing in a sense, to remove that self-imposed obligation that I felt to upgrade yearly, to always have the best of the best. I don't need the best, I just need a reliable smartphone. And I'm personally pretty ingrained into the iPhone ecosystem, so the 15 Pro Max, it's just about perfect. And I can almost guarantee it'll be a great experience for anyone who is currently using the phone or might be looking to buy one. And hey, if you are on the 15 Pro right now, make sure you comment your thoughts down below, very curious. Now, am I gonna upgrade to the iPhone 17 Pro or the 17 Air or whatever else Apple might come out with? At this point, I'd say, yeah, I probably will. It should be a bigger upgrade, and I think by this fall, that old itch where I start to really want to change up my experience will kick in again. Genuinely, I haven't used a single smartphone for this long straight in probably like a decade, when I was still like a younger teenager. I used to always be on the hunt for good iPhone deals on Craigslist and eBay, and so I found myself upgrading pretty frequently as I worked summers and saved my pennies, until of course I finally bought that iPhone 10, and then started buying the newest iPhone every year. For me to not switch phones for 2 years, that is pretty unprecedented. I guess I'm getting old. In any case, I probably will get the new iPhone this year, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens to know for sure. In the meantime, the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max are awesome, and very much still worth it in 2025. I highly recommend these phones, and if you have one right now, I don't think you'll need to upgrade anytime soon, unless of course you really want to. So with that, I think I'm right about done here. If you found this video interesting or helpful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. We do have a Discord server if you want to come by and say hi, and huge shout out to the channel members. Thank you guys so much for your support. And thank you all for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.